Hello, welcome to this session. In this session, we're going to be talking about address resolution protocol. We're going to understand what is address resolution protocol and what roles it plays in our networks or in the internet at large. A short disclaimer, any information or this tutorial is just meant for learning purposes, and any information gained via this content should not be used for any malicious attacks. And if you plan to attack, if you can't resist attacking something, make sure you own the equipment. Now, what is address resolution protocol? Address resolution protocol helps to translate MAC addresses into IP addresses, and this occurs in switches. So let's consider a situation where a switch has received information or a packet and doesn't know where this packet is supposed to go to, or the destination of this packet. What does it do? It will generally do what we call a non-unicast flooding. This is whereby it will forward the packet out of all ports except one that it came in through. This means that a switch, if it does not know a destination or doesn't know where a machine exists on a network, it will generally use broadcast packets to try and get to that packet, to that machine, and the broadcast packet will be a non-unicast flooding packet. Okay, now a switch lands by incoming traffic. So from the port which brought in the traffic, the switch lands the MAC address and the source IP address of that traffic and registers it in the MAC address table. Later, after receiving the reply from the unknown destination after unknown unicast flooding, then it will still record the source IP and the corresponding MAC address in its MAC address table, so that if it now receives a packet again going to the same destination, it will only do resolution. This is where address resolution comes in. It will only do resolution where to translate the MAC address into an IP address and just forward the traffic. That is, if it is in layer 3 routing, layer 3 routing or layer 3 forwarding of packets. So that is generally it when it comes to address resolution protocol. Now, there are some attacks that one could do on address resolution protocol. One of them is ARP poisoning attacks. This is where one attaches themselves to a network and pretends to be the default gateway, okay, of what the host in the network is using. So generally, this is where you attach yourself to a network and you give a lookalike MAC address to the default gateway. This way, the host in the network will think that, or the device in the network will think that the default gateway of where he or she wants to get to in the internet is the attacker's IP address. So the attacker will just be enjoying seeing all these records and data of what this person is doing afterwards. So that is what we call ARP poisoning. There is another attack which is common, that is the MAC address flooding attack. This is whereby you attach yourself to a network and then you fill up the MAC address table of the layer 2 device that is available on the network that is directly connected to these hosts. And when you flood the MAC address table, it generally goes back to empty. It empties itself and starts learning afresh. So if you're able to flood these records on a switch and pretend to be a new user on a switch, and you have filled up this table, when the table starts getting filled up again, you'll be one of those people who will be attached to that network. That means that you have already gained access into the network. That is breach. Now, when you're talking about, one might wonder, how might you flood a MAC address table? Now, I understand that some switches come with MAC address tables which could hold up to 8,000 records, and commonly we generally see switches with 48 ports and 24 ports, meaning that if the switch is fully engaged, it will only have 24 or 48 MAC addresses to resolve into IP addresses. But now this tool comes in and fills up the 8,000 MAC address records, so that the switch can start learning afresh. Okay, so you can basically see where the attack comes in there. Now, an example of a tool you could use to launch such an attack is called MAC-off, and it basically floods the switch with the MAC addresses, so that the learning process can start all over again. And after learning, now the attacker's machine will be one of those that will be connected to the network. A mitigation technique for such attacks will be setting up dynamic ARP inspection, and this is where you generally say, or where you generally specify what MAC addresses you want to be resolved. You say you have 5 MAC addresses. I want to only resolve these 5 MAC addresses. So that is what dynamic ARP inspection generally involves. You give the trust to those MAC addresses and the interfaces that are connected to those MAC addresses, saying that if traffic comes through this interface, I'm going to accept it. If it comes to an interface or a MAC address that I do not recognize is brought in, I'll just drop these packets and will not accept them. So that is generally it when it comes to address resolution protocol and some of the attacks that one could run on the protocol. So I hope you learned something. If you did, thank you for giving me your time. Kindly consider subscribing, liking my content, and see you in the next one.